close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself transported to a realm where time seems suspended, and every shadow and whisper portends something sinister. In a remote, isolated place, far from any sign of civilization, you find yourself immersed in a darkness so dense that it appears to have its own weight. It is as if the very air is imbued with an ancient mystery, a secret that refuses to be unveiled. The sensation is overwhelming. The absolute silence is broken only by the barely perceptible murmur of the wind seeping through the cracks of walls long abandoned by time, and by the rhythmic beating of your own breath echoing in a void that swallows all light and sound. In this setting of isolation, every sense is heightened, and each thought is invaded by an inexplicable unease. You stand before a darkness that is not merely the absence of light but a living entity that watches and waits. As your eyes adjust to the dim glow, a disturbing feeling takes hold. You are not alone. An indefinable presence hovers with unknown intent, a sensation that defies logical explanation, emerging from a primordial and obscure place where reason yields to the inexplicable. Gradually, the environment around you transforms. The contours of reality blur, and the line between the possible and the impossible becomes indistinguishable. You sense the weight of untold stories, of secrets hidden in the shadows, of lives forever altered by encounters with the inexplicable. Travelers, workers, and guards have all whispered accounts of moments when silence turned into a dire warning, of instances when the very laws of nature bent to something beyond understanding. Each account is imbued with an overwhelming terror that seeps into the soul. There exist places where darkness not only envelopes but also observes, where every shadow stands as a silent sentinel and where closing your eyes unveils a universe of hidden horrors. These cursed locales exude an unsettling energy that reverberates through time's corridors and the depths of memory. The truth lurking behind the veil of darkness is as ancient as the primal fear dwelling in the human heart. As your mind wanders through these long-forgotten memories, you realize that fear is not a transient emotion. It is a constant companion, an invisible presence feeding on every accelerated beat of your heart. The environment seems to conspire to amplify this dread, each whisper of the wind murmuring secrets that should never be heard. It is as if the darkness itself wishes to recount a story, a tale filled with warnings, silent laments, and a terror so palpable you can almost reach out and touch it. Now you stand at the edge of an abyss where the familiar dissolves into the unknown and reality shatters into countless fragments, each reflecting a piece of the inexplicable. In this moment of raw vulnerability, the darkness reveals its true face, not a mere absence of light, but an active presence that watches, waits, and insists on being remembered. The invitation to plunge into this world of ancestral fears is extended, and as you move forward, you become part of a narrative where every word carries the promise of horror that will never be forgotten. Prepare yourself, for what is about to be revealed is not merely a collection of isolated tales, but the echo of voices demanding attention, of souls lost at the threshold of terror, and of a universe where silence is the most eloquent warning. Once these secrets infiltrate your mind, nothing will ever be the same. The darkness, with its relentless vigilance, has already begun to envelop you, and with every heartbeat, the certainty that you are never truly alone intensifies, laying the groundwork for even deeper horrors. On a night seemingly stripped of all comfort, a night security guard found himself immersed in a familiar routine that, in an instant, transformed into a silent nightmare. His task was simple: patrol the long, empty corridors, monitor the cameras, and ensure that nothing disturbed the icy tedium of an abandoned building. But that night, the routine was irreversibly shattered by an event that defied logical explanation. As the monitors displayed images of impeccably empty hallways and flickering fluorescent lights, something began to disrupt the monotony. In the midst of a deserted corridor, an unexpected figure appeared, a child, fragile and ethereal, dressed in white. This unsettling presence starkly contrasted with the somber surroundings. The sight was breathtaking, not so much for the innocence it might evoke, but for the aura of desolation and mystery that enveloped it. It was as if this small being had emerged from the depths of a forgotten past, carrying with it the mark of an inexorable destiny. The atmosphere within the building seemed to condense, and every step the guard took echoed as if time itself were held in a chilling grip. Approaching the spot where the inexplicable figure had materialized, every sound, the metallic clink of his footsteps, the low hum of the flickering lights, intensified the sense that something was dreadfully amiss. The air, normally inert, began to pulse with a disturbing energy, laden with silent omens and an almost tangible unease. The feeling of isolation deepened with each passing moment, as if the very space of the building were contracting into a deadly embrace, imprisoning all senses within a labyrinth of shadows and forewarnings. Even when he returned to the monitors, the image of the child persisted, now with a presence that defied the logic of space and time. The silhouette seemed to draw nearer, as if attempting to breach the barrier between the real and the imagined, between safety and the unknown. Every detail of the environment amplified the tension. The feeble, oscillating light, the corners where darkness pooled, and the silence draping each corridor like a heavy shroud. Gripped by a silent terror, the guard realized that this inexplicable presence was not merely a trick of his imagination but a manifestation of something beyond human reason. The space had transformed into a stage where invisible, sinister forces gathered to enact a macabre play, a subtle dance between life and death. On a deserted road where the darkness of night melds with the loneliness of the asphalt, a solitary worker drove his vehicle on what seemed a mundane mission. The vast expanse of the road was interrupted only by rows of towering trees, standing like silent sentinels, witnesses to secrets long buried. Each mile carried him further from the comfort of normalcy, into a realm where the unknown lurks around every bend and reality distorts into silhouettes and shadows. As he adjusted signs and performed routine repairs, the sensation of isolation deepened. A blend of fatigue and apprehension infiltrated every fiber of his being. The monotonous hum of the engine and the rustling of leaves were suddenly interrupted by a moment that would transform the night into a living nightmare. Out of nowhere, a figure emerged by the roadside, a man whose presence was as unexpected as it was disturbing. The man, tall and lean, wore clothes soaked as if he had just emerged from a river of shadows. But what truly churned the worker's stomach was something indescribable. The man's face showed no recognizable features. It was as if the very visage had been erased, leaving only a smooth, pale surface devoid of eyes, a nose, or a mouth. In the absence of these features, the unease morphed into pure terror, for the void where human features should be became a mirror to an unfathomable abyss. The surrounding environment seemed to shift in an instant, and the silence of the road was shattered by a whirlwind of bewildering thoughts. Each moment was marked by doubt, as if time itself had frozen to witness this surreal encounter. The worker blinked, trying to convince himself that the experience was nothing more than an exhaustion-induced illusion, but the sensation of being watched intensified with every passing second. The biting cold in the air made every movement of the faceless man a disturbing reminder that death and fear can manifest in ways beyond imagination. Before he could react, panic seized him as he desperately tried to start his vehicle. Each attempt was met with a dull, ominous sound, as if the machine itself refused to cooperate in his escape from this bizarre encounter. The atmosphere became thick with tension. Every reflection in the rearview mirror revealed the distorted image of the inexplicable visitor. The void of that face, utterly expressionless, served as a grim reminder that the unknown can assume forms that transcend the limits of human imagination. As he battled with his rising panic, every sound and shadow took on new, menacing significance. The cold touch of something approaching the vehicle, the feeling of an unseen force scrutinizing every move, and the realization that, in that fleeting moment, the thin line between the real and the imagined was dissolving, all conspired to create an atmosphere of absolute terror. Every second stretched into an eternity, and the presence of that man, reduced to a terrifying void, remained an indelible mark, a sign that no matter how desperately one tries to escape, some horrors are destined to follow those who dare to challenge the unknown. In the heart of an unforgiving desert, where silence is broken only by the distant echoes of the wind and the whispers of fate, a radio tower technician faced a routine fraught with challenges. Working under the vast night sky amid shifting dunes and forgotten ruins required not only skill but also a quiet courage in the face of the mysteries that lurked in isolation. Yet, on that fateful night, something changed irrevocably, transforming the familiar environment into a stage for the inexplicable. While performing routine adjustments at the transmission base, the technician noticed an anomaly that, at first, could be blamed on electrical faults or natural interference. However, as the minutes dragged on, it became clear that something far beyond mere mechanics was at work, a disturbance that defied the known laws of communication. Suddenly, the radio station, which had hitherto remained in an electromagnetic silence, began to emit a subtle, irregular hum. This sound, initially almost imperceptible, transformed into an almost supernatural murmur, as if carrying the voices of forgotten eras and secrets buried beneath the sand. With every passing second, the atmosphere grew denser, and the usually calm desert began to pulse with an unsettling energy. The technician's hands trembled as he adjusted the controls, feeling an inexplicable pressure, as if the tower itself were imbued with a spirit that refused to be silenced. As he watched the meter oscillate erratically, the contours of reality seemed to distort, and every crack and pop of the equipment amplified the sense that something was drawing near. The horizon, once still, appeared to ripple as if reflecting the whims of a universe that rejected human logic. As the murmur intensified, the setting transformed into a scene of silent terror. Every noise carried an enigmatic message, and every shadow cast by the tower's light seemed to conceal indecipherable secrets. The technician felt a cold seep into his bones, and a chill of sweat began to trace down his neck as he struggled to maintain control of the situation. The radio station, a tool once reliable for so many years, now seemed to have taken on a life of its own, an existence that defied reason and invaded the space with a disturbing presence. Unable to fully comprehend what was unfolding, he began to notice subtle movements around the metal structure. A shadow, moving with an almost supernatural grace, ascended the tower, defying gravity and logic. Every moment became a battle against disbelief as the scene morphed into one fit for the worst nightmares. The realization that even technology could align with dark forces awakened a primitive terror within him, leaving him to wonder whether what he was witnessing belonged to reality or was merely a delusion born of fear. The desert, with its absolute silence, provided the perfect backdrop for an encounter with the inexplicable. Immersed in a reality where every sound and movement carried sinister significance, the technician understood that this phenomenon was not a mere mechanical failure but the manifestation of a power beyond human comprehension. The environment conspired to intensify his anguish, and the feeling of being watched by an unseen entity grew almost unbearable. Each moment ticked by like a countdown to a climax emerging from the shadows, a reminder that no matter how one tries to escape, certain secrets can never be silenced. When the lights go out and the screen turns black, the relief you expect is replaced by a disquieting emptiness, as if the very act of turning off the device has paved the way for horrors that refuse to vanish. In a world where routine is shattered by moments that defy comprehension, fear assumes an almost tangible dimension that persists even after the images fade. This is not merely a recounting of isolated events. It is the chronicle of a presence that seeps into the cracks of reality and, once awakened, never allows you to return to normalcy. Reflecting on the stories that have unfolded, you come to realize that fear has an insidious way of rooting itself deep within the soul. People who once believed themselves immune to extreme terror suddenly confront the harsh reality that safety is an illusion. The environment, with its deceptive calm, becomes the setting for a silent confrontation with the unknown, where every sound, every movement, and every pause carries the promise that something dreadful may be lurking just out of sight. The narratives woven into this tale are more than mere ghost stories. They serve as a reminder that the line between the real and the imagined is exceedingly thin, and that true horror lies precisely in what defies explanation. Every experience, every encounter with the inexplicable, leaves an indelible mark, a hidden scar that accompanies a person for a lifetime. It is as if, by listening to these tales, the mind becomes a stage for disturbing memories that refuse to dissipate. The feeling of helplessness, the mounting anguish with every heartbeat, and the chill that races down your spine are constant reminders that even when your eyes close and the screen goes dark, terror continues to pulse in the silence. That silence, filled with warnings and echoes of long-forgotten voices, becomes an irresistible invitation to those who, perhaps unconsciously, crave the unknown. The solitude of late hours, the crackling quiet in the walls of a seemingly safe home, and the nagging sense that something, or someone, is watching every move transform everyday life into a stage of suspense and anxiety. Once awakened, fear has the power to infiltrate every corner, reminding us that true safety may be nothing more than a fleeting illusion. In this environment, even after the visual narrative ends, the tension lingers as if the end of the story were only the beginning of an endless journey through a labyrinth of terror. Thus, as you return to your daily routine, every step toward a familiar place may become a passage into the unknown. The stories you have heard serve as a lasting reminder that fear does not vanish when the lights go out or the video ends. It hides in the spaces between silence, in the shadows of dark corners, and in the memories of those who dared to confront the inexplicable. And so, while the world resumes its apparent normalcy, one undeniable truth remains. Darkness is ever watchful, and terror, even if dormant, is always lurking, waiting for the moment to resurface and seize the soul.